I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. All stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we can have roll call.
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Page.
Present.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
Councilmember Woodard.
Accounted for.
And Councilmember Sonmore asked to be excused.
Move to excuse Councilmember Sonmore.
Second.
It's moved and
Okay.
seconded to excuse Councilmember Sonmore. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? She is excused. Thank you. So next is late changes to the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. No late changes from us this evening.
Okay, so can we add a presentation before the general comment?
Sure. That would be item number 3, and the rest of the items will move down. General public comment will become item number 4, and so on.
All right, because we want to have a special recognition to our outgoing council member, Rick Ryan. So can you join me at the podium?
It'll cost you.
All right. So originally I was going to read this 2-page, really long speech written by our staff, Sienna, and it really goes into all the things that Rick did in his life. But I thought that I would read something that came from my heart. And so I wrote something different, but they're all kind of intermingled. And so what I wanted to say was, Rick, I've enjoyed working with you for the past 17 years, and it's almost 18 years, and only 1 month apart. I'm just 1 month senior. and I can say that you have always been prepared at the meetings, because you're really professional, you're a teacher, and so you had challenges many, many times because while you were teaching, you can't answer the telephone, even in emergencies when the city manager tried to get a hold of you, because that's the way it is when you're teaching, right? Yes. And, but after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you were available, and you made it to the meetings and so forth, so we really appreciate that. And, you know, you've always been respectful. We've never agreed on everything, and we never will. I don't think you and your wife even have agreed on everything. So, but you've always asked questions, and I've asked questions, and we've discussed things, and we've always respected each other. You also added humor to the council. If things were a little dry or a little tense, we can always count on Rick. Because, and I can't even remember half the stuff that you said, but it just broke the ice. That famous Wooly Bully, is that the name of that song? Yeah. That you kept playing, that you kept singing, and you did it even once over here when we had National Night Out. You did the whole song, yeah. And I have it on tape. And there were, you also did Secret Agent Man quite a bit too. So, and then when we really, really needed it, music showed up from nowhere because Rick had something on his laptop. Yeah. It was ready to go. And we had music.
Oh yeah, I played Winchester Cathedral.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So I need my glasses. And so a lot of people thought you weren't serious because you broke the ice with all these humor, but you were serious. Underneath everything, you were very, very serious. And you cared about the city and you cared about the council. Before you got on the council, apparently you were on the Parks, Arts, Garden Club with the city. You volunteered a lot. And you were also on the committee for Tour de Terrace. And so you always had to excuse yourself whenever we voted. And, but, you know, we could always count on you for questions, because when we're new on the council, we didn't know where to be. So just ask Rick. So we just send everybody to you. Now, the art show. I remember when your family took over the art show, and I remember it being an art show, but after your family took over, it became a big art show. And Connor made it even bigger because he knows IT. And he knows how to do that whatever thingy it was that people had to send in their artwork on. And
Yeah, art thingy.
so,
Something like that.
right. But you and your family were serious about the art show. And it shows because people from all over started sending in their art pieces. And it became more of a regional and national art show. And because people even sent in art from outside the state. So we were getting well known there. We still are. It's not in the past. And one of the things that I really find amazing about you and your family, actually, apparently at the library, the art show is happening. Everybody is busy, but someone forgot to clean the toilet, the bathroom. And it had to, you know, and all those people are going to show up, and the bathroom is looking the way it's looking. And so who shows up in his suit with a toilet cleaner, cleaning that bathroom so that everything will be really nice for all the people coming to the art show. And that was Rick. And you should have gotten a photo of that. And that was not only 1 year, but many years.
Air freshener.
And whatever else you brought in there. So I really appreciate everything that the Ryan family did with the art show. But look at the bright side of things now. You're going to have your Thursdays back. We're going to miss you, but now you have more time to spend with your family. You're going to have more time to enjoy your retirement, and you're going to finally have time to travel. And you better get out there and travel, because I know Judy's been wanting to travel. But you're always going to be welcome here. You can stay on a board or commission. You're still on, well, we'll have to put you on someplace. But you're,
Art volunteer.
yes, you're going to volunteer. You're going to continue to volunteer. You're always going to do that. And you can come to this podium during any of our future meetings and give us your 2 cents on a public comment.
That's for sure.
And really, you're really a great human being. You're honest, you're respectful, you're funny, and you're talented, if anyone has ever seen you play any musical instrument. And your family loves you. I know that. And we all strive for that, so that makes you a very, very lucky person. And so, the city would like to present you with a, oh goodness, I don't want to get it.
That's okay, I got Windex at home.
So here is presented to Rick Ryan in recognition of your dedicated service, unwavering commitment, and steadfast devotion to the city of Mountlake Terrace. Thank you for your time on the City Council, 2008 to 2025. There you are. And can we get a photo of that?
I think it's glass.
It is.
It's glass and I might break it.
Please do not. Oh. Thank you.
Nah, they're shy. They're shy.
And it's your turn to talk.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to say that the mayor said that I can speak just up to an hour. So it's going to be a while. So just kidding. The Seahawks are on. What's the score now? Someone told me we're ahead.
Yeah, we were for a minute, now it's over.
Oh, no. Okay. Anyway, this is my farewell speech, and I wanted to thank the staff for putting together some treats for everybody to eat, and like to thank the mayor for all the kind words and being available in her last, how many years have you been mayor now? 8? Yeah, almost 8 years. Anytime I had a question, I could call her, and she'd always answer the phone, even if she's in the middle of some kind of celebration or meeting or something. She'd take the call. I want to thank the city manager also for taking all my calls and texts and help me out if I needed questions. Thank you, council, for working with me, and especially our Mountlake Terrace Police Chief Caw. Thanks for being here and all the good stuff. So if someone was shooting my windows out, you'd come up and help. Just kidding, it only happened once. But I've had a great time being on the council since 2008, and the city's made a lot of accomplishments since then, and I'm not going to go through them all. But looking back, I had some moments to think about when I first got on the council in 2008. We were in the old city hall on this property. And I remember sitting there on the dais and looking up, and the ceiling was really weird. It had this texture to it, and then it had this bubble, like it was a big zit. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is that thing? It was kind of really ugly. And I thought, I don't know. And then 3 weeks later, the ceiling fell down. And it was loaded with asbestos, so we had to clean that up, and we moved our council meetings to the library. What had happened is they encapsulated it to get rid of the asbestos, because it was built in, 62, around there. And so it just all peeled off and came down. And so it only cost $50,000 to clean it up. But it was well worth it. Anyway, so we had to look for a place to rent. So we ended up at, I went to all these different buildings around here, office buildings, to see where we could have our meetings. And we finally settled on Redstone 2 on 220th. And then had to rent that. And then we had to go through 3 ballot measures to get a levy and a bond so we could have this place we have now. So we finally settled, the citizens settled on this building we have now. I'm really glad to be in a building where the ceiling's not falling down. And with the, when we were getting this, when we were still in Redstone, we had our mayor, Jerry Smith, pass away. And then when we had this building built, we worked on getting a plaza out front, and that's named in the honor of Jerry Smith. So I kind of wanted to recognize that. I also, something for the city, I really wanted to thank our Recreation and Parks Director, Jeff Betts, for everything he's done in getting grants to help our parks keep going, like the Ballinger Park Playground, Evergreen Playfield Complex, where we have that brand new soccer field, Veterans Memorial Park, where they're making nice trails to eventually hook up to the light rail. Then I'd like to thank my wife, Judy, and son, Connor, for coming tonight and supporting me for the last 18 years. And I'm sure they're glad, though, I could help them out with the art show. So anyway, I had a great time, and now, as our mayor, Kyoko Matsumoto Wright, said, on Thursday nights, I can stay at home with my wife and or travel. So I'm not sure if we go to Italy, if the laptop will work for a Thursday night meeting. So I might call you up and say something, tell you how good a job you're doing. Anyway, so thank you very much for this evening. And that is all.
It's better because you usually don't win the lotto. You have an empty ticket, or maybe $2.
Goes over it. Okay, so that didn't take an hour.
Oh, wait, I didn't turn the page over.
And we have lots of things to eat still, so please eat. They're in the back. Okay, so next on our agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment?
We have one person signed up to speak remotely, but first I will read our protocols.
Okay.
The city welcomes general public comments at the beginning of council work sessions and meetings, and comments on a particular agenda item at the time it is being discussed. Public comments are for the official record. Council does not respond to comments or questions during this time. Address the council as a whole, and comments shall pertain to topics, not individual council members, staff, or audience members. Clearly state your name and your city of residence, and limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes. The clerk will terminate comments beyond the allotted 5 minutes, or if there is a violation of the comment behavior guidelines. Written comments received will be added to the official record, but will not be read aloud. We have Adam Sike. You'll have 5 minutes to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so this is Adam CK from Mountlake Terrace. And I just wanted to quickly thank everyone for voting to cancel the flock contract. It was really such an amazing surprise to wake up to a couple weeks ago. It means a lot to all of us that you did, and that you listened and kept up to date on everything that was going on in the news with them. I know it wasn't an easy thing to do either, since you'd already signed the contract. So I just wanted to let you know that we all recognize that and appreciate it. And thanks for doing the right thing. And I feel really thankful to live in a town like this. Thanks.
No one else has signed up to speak remotely or in person.
Okay. All right, so next on our agenda is consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve the consent agenda, items A through F.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That has been passed. And next is the review and the public hearing vote on the ordinance adopting the critical areas update. And is this the one that's going to be online? Okay, with Sarah Pizzo.
All right, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Let me share my screen. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So tonight I'm going to go over the critical area ordinance update, followed by the public hearing and vote. The purpose tonight will be to review specific code changes that have been recommended by Planning Commission and amended per council direction during our work session last week. And then I will be following up on the Muckleshoot Tribe comments, providing recommendations, and then, like I said, the public hearing and discussion and vote. So the council goal that most relates to the critical area ordinance update is our environmental sustainability and resiliency goals. And to refresh your memory, the Growth Management Act requires all cities and counties to regularly update and have development regulations that protect critical areas. There's 5 types of critical areas that we're required to protect. Those would be wetlands, areas with critical recharging effect on aquifers used for potable water, frequently flooded areas, geologically hazardous areas, and fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas. And updating these regulations is in alignment with our comprehensive plan. We're required to make these updates by the end of this year. And another reason we do this is because it can be costly or even impossible to replace critical areas once they're gone. So here's an image of our critical area map. This is a living document. It is an indicator that shows where critical areas may be located within the city and where regulations apply. It's not the end-all be-all. There could be critical areas that aren't shown on the map but are observed in the field, but this just gives us a good clue where we need to apply our critical area regulations. Next, a little bit about the update process. So the city started working with the consultant Facet back in February to support this update process, and they did so by providing us with a best available science review, a gap analysis so we could see where our current code stands and where our code needs to be to meet state requirements, and then help us with some recommendations for an updated code. And staff came to Planning Commission and Council in the summer to provide a high-level overview and also engaged with the community on this topic at National Night Out. back in August. And then, of course, did our standard noticing requirements for SEPA and for public hearings. And then lastly, the city worked really closely with state agencies along the way to get feedback on our draft ordinance throughout the year. All right, I'm going to start with some general provision updates, and then I'll get into each specific critical area type after that. So for our general provision updates, I want to highlight that in our applicability section, we're increasing the area around water bodies that will apply, and then adding a new clause to cover our critical aquifer recharge areas. And then we're adding a non-conformance section to allow for the maintenance, repair, and rebuilding of uses and structures that are destroyed in fires or other catastrophes for legal non-conforming uses and non-native vegetation. And then increasing our fines for unlawful removal of trees or damage to trees in critical areas to be consistent with unlawful tree removal in our zoning code. And then I wanted to add a general note on enforcement in response to one of the council members' questions during the work session. So staff kind of re-reviewed our regulations for enforcement and penalties of critical areas and feel that the general critical area violation enforcement and penalty regulations are quite strong. We have a $500 per day fine for critical area violations, and this is in addition to the fines in Chapter 1.15 penalties. And then in addition to that, additional penalties can be applied based on square footage of critical area or buffer disturbed. And I did a comparison with a lot of our neighboring cities and saw that our critical area enforcement and penalties section is very well aligned with a lot of our neighboring cities. So staff feels that this section is strong and the language is adequate as it exists and is proposed. Some more general provision updates. So under the trees and activities, we're looking to shift the focus to net ecological gain or minor conservation and enhancement efforts, adding a timeline for replanting areas where invasive plants are removed. We did update the draft ordinance to lower the tree replacement ratio to generally reflect agency guidance in neighboring cities per council's direction last week, and then adding a new fee in lieu option for tree replacement for when sites are constrained. Next, I'll get into our updates to the wetland section. So here's a map showing where wetlands and their buffers are generally located within the city. Our changes here include increasing the buffers for low habitat scoring wetlands, their standard buffers, increasing buffer widths by 50% where there are slopes that are greater than 30%, and removing any allowance to reduce minimum buffer widths because that is not supported by best available science or ecology guidance. Other wetland standards that we're looking to update include requiring wetland buffers to be vegetated with native plants or widen, adding conditions of the wetlands to be met for minimum buffer widths in that table that I just showed to be used. And then to be consistent with other parts of our critical area code, the proposed code does not allow uncovered decks in the wetland building setback area. Only roof overhangs and impervious surfaces will be allowed in the building setback. And then lastly, having allowances for legally established non-conforming buffers. Additional changes to the wetlands section is when it comes to alterations, we're tightening up regulations so that only through a variance or reasonable use exception process could alterations be approved rather than through an administrative approval. And when a hearing examiner does allow an alteration, we are looking to expand the options for providing mitigation to update ecology guidance. Oops. I moved the slide. Sorry about that. Right. All right, next is the updates to fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas. So these are shown here on the map. And they now include streams. So streams have been moved to the fish and wildlife habitat conservation area section. We've simplified the section to one classification rather than having a primary and secondary because it's more straightforward for implementation and aligns with the state administrative code. We've strengthened the code to not allow alterations without approval from a hearing examiner, similar to wetlands. And then encouraging mitigation before any disturbance to reduce impacts to plants and animals, and requiring maintenance and monitoring when mitigation is required. The next update to this section is increasing stream buffers and reducing building setbacks to help offset that increase a little bit. And so all stream buffers will be increased by 50 feet for all stream types. And then the setback for buildings will be reduced by 5 feet. Additional changes regarding stream buffers include improvements for implementation, requiring enhancement measures like removal of fish barriers and restoration of fish habitat, and no longer allowing for changes that would degrade buffer function. Next is updates to geologically hazardous areas. So these are shown here on the map. The lighter green are areas of lesser slopes, and the darker orange and pink colors are our steeper slopes. So changes in this section include updating our landslide hazard susceptibility factors, like slopes and historic failures, updating our critical area reporting requirements to be more robust by requiring a cumulative impact analysis and dynamic condition analysis, as well as adding a factor of safety threshold, which will allow us to implement the section better. Next is updates to frequently flooded areas. These are shown in the light turquoise here. And the only change to this section is a new requirement to conduct a habitat assessment related to endangered species in floodplains. Next is the critical aquifer recharge areas. And these are shown on this map here. Changes include regulating these areas based on susceptibility, including wellhead protection areas and buffers as CARAs, updating our use table for ease of implementation, requiring a hydrogeologist as the proper qualified professional to study CARAs, and then removing the mitigation section per feedback from Department of Health, essentially because any amount of degradation to drinking water is not permissible. Right, next is our updates to the definition section. So we've removed terms that are no longer in the critical area ordinance, added new words and phrases, and updated existing definitions to meet best available science, state law definitions, or just improve clarity. All right, now I'm going to talk about agency and public comment. So both the Commerce comment period and the SEPA comment period have now closed. We received comments from many of the state agencies we would expect to hear from on a critical area ordinance, as well as the Muckleshoot Tribe. And I just want to take a moment to thank all the reviewers from these organizations who put a lot of time and care into giving the city feedback. So that's really appreciated. Comments from the state agencies have been incorporated into the current draft ordinance, either prior to the public hearing for Planning Commission or between the council work session and now. And then staff provided a follow-up memo for council regarding the Muckleshoot comments. And I'm going to go over some of those comments now. So as I stated last week, most of the suggestions provided by the Muckleshoot Tribe were effectively covered by existing or proposed language or presented challenges for implementation or went above and beyond GMA requirements and best available science published by the state agencies. However, there was a council comment about kind of the word most and what about, what was outside of most and maybe could be implemented or wasn't covered by the language. So I'm going to go over some of those that staff would not be opposed to recommending if council wants to consider amending the draft ordinance to reflect some of these comments. So I'm going to just focus on those, but if council has any questions about any others, I'd be happy to go back to slides that discuss those. So the first comment from the tribe that staff would recommend relates to legal non-conforming structures and uses that can be rebuilt or resumed after being destroyed by a fire or other catastrophe. And this condition is that a restored structure is elevated or flood-proofed or relocated landward where practicable to reduce future risk to life, property, and habitat. And staff finds this is a bit of a unique non-conforming provision, but something that's quite reasonable, top of mind right now, honestly, and would be feasible to implement. And so staff would recommend that one. The next one staff recommends is consulting with Fish and Wildlife as well as affected tribes when emergency determinations are made involving potentially impacting salmon habitat. So staff already always has the option to consult with the Department of Fish and Wildlife as well as tribes, just generally when implementing the critical area ordinance. There's no harm to having this stronger language, which is implementable, so staff would recommend this change. The next one that staff would recommend regards the methodology section that's required in critical area reports. The suggestion here is to include more details about assumptions, error margins, identification of scientific uncertainty, and long-term effects. This might already inherently be in a lot of critical area reports, but it's something that we could absolutely require them to include. So this suggestion was very clear, reasonable, and implementable. So staff would recommend this change. The next one is regarding updated best available science or new field data or salmon recovery science when submitting a critical area report. One of the additional requirements that can be submitted is a previous report, and we would honor that if it was valid within 5 years. The suggestion here is to say it wouldn't be valid if there is better science that's come out. And so staff finds that language is reasonable and general enough to be implemented across all the different critical area types. And so staff would recommend that change. I do have a note here regarding if council wanted to reduce the validity of timeline for staff reports from 5 to 3 years, we should change it here to be consistent in the code. However, staff is not recommending making that change. Staff recommends leaving it at 5 years. And if there's more questions about that, I can go over that. But yeah, here the recommendation is just to say if more available science or more current best available science comes out since, then that would override any previous critical area reports. All right, next I'll go over recommendations and next steps. So Planning Commission back in October recommended approval of the critical area ordinance. Staff recommends that council adopt the draft critical area ordinance with the following amendments. I'm not going to read these word for word, but these 4 amendments reflect the Muckleshoot comments that I had just gone over. And I can pull up this slide as you are making motions tonight, if that would be helpful, if you'd like to include that. Right, next steps will be the public hearing and then discussing and voting on the updated critical area regulations. And taking any of your questions and having discussion at this time. Thank you.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions before we open the public hearing? Go ahead, Councilmember Page.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the detailed that you provided with the Muckleshoot comments versus our staff, and this is more of a comment. You can speak to it if you choose, but it's not really a question. But it would appear that the Muckleshoot tribe and the state, like the ecology and the state agencies, aren't really aligned with what one thinks is more important than the other. And I kind of get the feeling, and I'm not an expert on this, but just by looking at the comments, it sounds like Muckleshoot tribe desires the state and the cities and the counties to do more than what they're actually doing. And it sounds like the agencies are telling the states that, well, what we're doing is enough and more would be too much. And it for me, it just, sounds like, I guess one of those things that I hear a lot of, well, we're just not going to do more, even though more could be better, because these are the people who have been, doing this long before we were here, and they got a pretty good idea what they think it should look like if more work was being done. And I'm not necessarily criticizing the staff for not recommending things, but I guess it's just something that's kind of like standing out with me, as without sitting in the room when Muckleshoot tribe sits with these agencies, I wonder, how contentious it is with them, because it just seems as if, maybe, the tribe's suggestions to the state and to the counties and to us, to me, sounds like it could be reasonable, but on the other hand, I'm writing notes. I wonder how much does that cost? I wonder why would you need more staff to do this? Or you mentioned, don't have the expertise, and it just, I guess, kind of like stumps me a little bit when I see some of the reasons why, not necessarily staff doesn't recommend them, but because of what our agencies here in this state feel isn't something that's necessary to do. So that's why I'm calling it a comment, not a question, because I'm not expecting you to be the expert on the conversations that take place between, the various groups. But, for me, it's just something I think worth mentioning anyway.
Well, it's also that some of the smaller cities don't have the staff or the ability to get the expertise too. We're a larger city comparatively. So that might be a portion of it, I don't know, but Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just, if there's no further conversation, I was ready to go to the public hearing. I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Public hearing is now open. And do we have anyone signed up for this?
No one signed up to provide testimony.
No one has signed up online or in person?
Correct.
All right, so Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Public hearing is now closed. And now we go, do we have to do more? Oh, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to adopt the ordinance amending the Critical Areas Ordinance, Chapter 16.15.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion before we? Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you, Sarah. I appreciate the additional work that went into this between when we saw it last time, just a week ago, right? And today, I think the really important part of us engaging in community and asking for feedback is that we incorporate that feedback as much as possible. And I know we had been getting feedback until very late in the process. And so I'm really grateful that staff took the time to go through, look at the suggestions, weigh in and give us feedback and information to use as council members to determine whether or not you would recommend that, and then let us have that conversation. So I just want to commend you for that work and share my appreciation for that work. I would be very supportive of making an amendment tonight to move forward with the additional staff recommendations that are part of the presentation that we heard tonight, and would be curious what colleagues think. But that would be where I would land in terms of I appreciate the desire to balance the feedback as well as all of the other feedback and regulations, and I think staff's recommendations feel appropriate to me, and I would support that.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to add the staff recommended amendments.
Second.
We vote on that one.
We have to vote on that first, sorry. Yes.
All right, so it's been moved and
Any
seconded.
discussion?
And are there any discussions before we vote? All right, I'm going to call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So that has been added, and now,
Motion's on the table. Any discussion?
any discussion on the motion that's on the table? If not, I'll just call for the question, right? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. Then
Thank you.
we'll move on to the next, number 6 or 7, whatever we're going to add. We're now going to review public hearing and vote on the ordinance adopting the floodplain management update. And this is with Sarah also? No, someone else.
Yes, it's with me.
Okay.
Also, I meant to say, I'm sorry I'm not there in person tonight. I have not been feeling well all week. And I wish I could be there in person, but thank you for bearing with me.
Well, I'm glad you're not here if you're ill. So, but please get better so you can enjoy your Christmas or holidays. Sorry.
Thank you. All right, next I will go over the floodplain management ordinance update. The purpose of this item tonight will be to review specific code amendments recommended by Planning Commission, provide next steps, open the public hearing, and vote. So the council goal that relates to our floodplain management ordinance, again, is the environmental sustainability and resiliency goal. To refresh folks' memory, the National Flood Insurance Program is managed by FEMA. This program provides flood insurance to property owners, renters, businesses, and having this coverage helps them recover faster when floodwaters recede. The Department of Ecology helps local jurisdictions like Mountlake Terrace adopt and enforce floodplain management regulations to help mitigate flooding effects. And these minor updates are required by the end of this year, and making these updates also aligns with our comprehensive plan. So this map should look familiar from the last presentation. This is the FIR map, or the flood insurance rate map for Mountlake Terrace. Mountlake Terrace only contains Zone A areas of special flood hazard. These are areas with a 1% annual chance of flooding and a 26% chance of flooding over the life of a 30-year mortgage. All right, ordinance changes to our definitions include some revisions, removing one definition, and adding words and phrases to reflect the updated code that's proposed. Within the administration section, changes include requiring an engineering analysis indicating no rise of base flood elevation when a development's in a floodway. This doesn't apply to Mountlake Terrace at this time, given that we don't have floodways, we just have floodplains. But to reflect the model ordinance, this is being recommended to be updated. And then there's some changes to the duties and responsibilities of the floodplain administrator. Floodplain administrator is our building official. That would be Matthew Gissel. And so the changes here are to review permits to ensure development is not located in a floodway or meets no rise standards. Again, not totally applicable at this time, but we include it to reflect the model ordinance. And then notifying FEMA when there's annexations in the special flood hazard area or changes to base flood elevation. And then they're also will be responsible for obtaining and maintaining flood elevation records, as-built, and no-rise certifications, as well as reviewing building permits and determining that development is reasonably safe from flooding based on historical data, high water marks, photographs, and things of this nature when there isn't elevation data available through FIS or FIR maps, which would be kind of the first course of action. The next section I'll talk about is our construction provisions for flood hazard reduction. So on this slide, I'll talk about utilities and subdivisions. For utilities, water wells should be located on high ground that's not in the floodway. And for subdivisions, it'd be a new requirement to require base flood elevation information as part of an application for subdivisions that are greater than 50 lots or 5 acres, whichever is less. For residential construction, there's a new requirement for making sure that the lowest floor, including the basement, is elevated 1 foot or more above base flood elevation, and mechanical equipment and utilities would have to be waterproofed or elevated at least 1 foot above the base flood elevation. Non-residential construction provisions will require structures lowest floor to be 2 feet above highest adjacent grade if the base flood elevation information cannot be obtained. Fully enclosed areas below the lowest floor will be prohibited unless they're designed with special engineering to allow the entry and exit of floodwaters, or they could have certified openings. And if neither of these can be met, the building would have to be structurally flood-proofed. And then insurance premium rates are based on 1 foot below the flood-proof level. For all buildings that are constructed or substantially improved with enclosed areas below the lowest floor, those can only be used for parking, building access, and storage. Right, agency and public comment. So similar, we had our commerce review period and SEPA review period. No comments were received on this draft ordinance amendment. It was a SEPA determination of non-significance, and staff worked really closely with the Department of Ecology early on, who provided feedback ahead of the official comment periods. And similar to our critical area ordinance update, staff engaged with the community on our floodplain management ordinance update at National Night Out in August. Right, recommendations and next steps. So Planning Commission recommends approval of the floodplain management ordinance amendments as presented. And next steps include having the public hearing, and then council is to discuss and vote on these regulations. And we have time for discussion and questions. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or comments before we open the public hearing? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to open the public hearing. Any discussions before we, okay. Do we have anyone signed up?
No one signed up in person or remotely to provide public testimony.
Pardon?
We have to vote.
We didn't vote to open the
Oh,
public
we have to
hearing.
vote to open it. I thought we did that. Sorry. All in favor to open the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Public hearing is now open. Okay, now we can ask the question.
No one signed up in person or remotely to provide public testimony on this item.
All right, thank you. So we don't have any questions before we close the public hearing? Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Public hearing is now closed. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to adopt the ordinance amending the floodplain management update, Chapter 16.18.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any comments, questions, discussions before we, Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, thank you for the work, and I just wanted to say how surreal it was to be working on this in the middle of a historic flooding situation, and so just sending out our love and thoughts to others in our county and surrounding area who are in floodways and learned this the hard way. So thank you for your work, and again, thank you for the council's care. Anyone
else? I think we only have a few homes that are in the floodplain here. So we're lucky, but who knows what will happen if it never stops raining. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Wall. Or are we already on?
Call for the question.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. And now we're going to close the public hearing. Okay. So next is the review the ordinance adopting the budget amendment with our Deputy City Manager, Carolyn Hope.
Good evening. I am here substituting for Finance Director Salmonen. And we are here for three different reasons. First, Director Salmonen wanted to ensure that our individual funds, our special revenue funds, were balanced before the end of the year. So the first proposal is to provide some general fund transfers to Fund 133 and 164. Now, this transfer would not increase our overall budget authority for the year. It is just right-sizing our special revenue funds. So Fund 133 is our recreation fund, and it is possible that we may have a budget gap, but it's hard to estimate as we come to year end and we're in the middle of expanding our revenue programs. So we, as a conservative measure, we want to have the ability to transfer $150,000 to that fund if needed. The other suggested change is to use some ending fund balance from Fund 164 to add $35,000 more to the account that helps low-income families pay for their solid waste pickup. We've just had more demand for that in this past year. So those were for 2025. We also have a change for 2026. Per your discussions on November 17th, there's a proposal to increase the city manager's salary by 14%, and that also affects certain benefits that are tied to salary. Now, given that what we had budgeted for 2026 and this proposed change, there's a difference of $19,119. More than the adopted budget. So we're asking for that change beginning January 1st, 2026. And then for both years, 25 and 26, Director Betts had come to you in November about adding 2 FTEs to the Recreation Fund 133, and that is to support the new preschool class that we started this fall, and to support the growth of the swim lessons, which we've been talking about, as well as there's high demand for those. So there would be 1.5 FTEs to support that new preschool class. And those classes have a cost recovery rate of about 128%. And we would have half an FTE to support the swim instruction. And those classes have a 90% cost recovery rate. So overall, we're not asking for additional budget authority, but we are asking to increase the FTE count by 2 in the Recreation Fund. And that is all I have for you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay. All right. So, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to adopt an ordinance of the city of Mountlake Terrace, Washington, amending the Mountlake Terrace 2025-26 budget.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussions before we vote? No. So I'm going to call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
All right, next is our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. Just 2 things to mention tonight. First, barring an emergency, this will be our last council meeting of the year, and we are next scheduled to meet on January 5th of 2026. So I wanted to mention that. And
January 8th.
sorry, January 8th. You're right. My mistake. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right. And then next, we have had, as was mentioned by Councilmember Woodard, some difficulty dealing with the storm, but not nearly as much as many of our neighbors. We've had just very localized flooding at the part of our community where it always floods, down near the interurban trail on 216th, roughly. But that's been taken care of very rapidly, and happy to be able to keep everything open there. We also had a tree fall in Jack Long Park and smashed a picnic table. Thankfully, no one was hurt, and glad to see that's the only damage we have so far. We are collecting all the costs associated with it to work with Snohomish County Department of Emergency Management and see what the costs are throughout the entire county, and if there is a opportunity to ask for reimbursement at the state or federal level, depending on what the cost thresholds may be. So keep an eye on that, and that's the only thing I have to report. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? All right, I don't see anybody. Thank you. Okay, so next is the council liaison reports. And why don't we start with Councilmember Ryan and then move that way and then this way? Or
Thanks, I'm checking my voice here. Like, need some water. Testing 1, 2. Sounds good. Anyway, I had a left one retirement meeting last Tuesday, and that's the end of my report. Oh, and this is a farewell goodbye.
thank you. And Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 5th, we had our tree lighting ceremony, which is always one of my favorite times of the year. And it was extra special for me this year because my daughter was one of the musicians up there, which was fun to see. But just appreciate staff and all the work and all the volunteers that went into that. I was going to say the lines were very efficient this year. I was very impressed. I was going to say it probably led to my kids maybe eating more than one cookie, but it was a good time, and I appreciate everybody turning out and appreciate that we had really good weather. That always makes it a lot more pleasant. So on the 8th, I attended our executive session. On the 11th, I attended our regular council meeting. On the 13th, I went to the Santa breakfast over at the high school. And again, we have so many talented musicians in our community. I will say, I'm very appreciative for all of the folks who share their talents, and enjoyed breakfast as well as just the sense of community and seeing all the folks over there and the quality entertainment, and of course Santa. And then yesterday was our monthly diversity, equity, and inclusion meeting, and we had kind of a special meeting to end the year. We had the session here in this room, and the DEI Commission welcomed both the staff diversity, equity, and inclusion group as well as all of our new community ambassadors. So it was really neat to see those folks for that new program. There's 11 of them. I think I mentioned that previously, but I think most, if not all, were in attendance. And there were so many new faces. And I will tell you, listening to each of them talk about their why they were there was, everybody had their own reason, and it was diverse. And but I will say, I think sense of community in that space last night was strong. And I just appreciate this council supporting that program and the staff, all of their work that went into putting that together, and all of the folks that raised their hand. I think we've got good folks who are excited to learn more about the city, who are excited to connect the city with the groups that they are connected to. I sat next to one of our new ambassadors, and she was telling me about she substitute teaches in the district, and she's lived here since 1989, and her mom lives here, and she hopes her kids live here someday. And she was just really excited to find a way to plug in with the community that worked with her life. And so I think that's a great example of what that program will afford people to do. And she was talking about maybe it leading to other things in the future. And I thought it was facilitated so well. Our Carolyn, who's the staff liaison to the DEI Commission, as well as all of our DEI commissioners, presented, and they facilitated this wonderful opportunity for them to share how they'd like to plug in and what they're interested in plugging in around. And so I think we've got a great new group of volunteers and community ambassadors. I guess I don't have a better word for it at the moment, but anyway, excited about that program. So definitely we'll keep you updated as that moves forward. But first meeting was a roaring success. So, and with that, I guess I will say thank you to Councilmember Ryan. I don't know if this is the appropriate place to do it, or are we going to do it in our new business? I'll do it now. I have had the pleasure of sitting next to Councilmember Ryan for the last 6 years. And he was the first person that welcomed me onto this council. He has made long meetings more enjoyable and lighthearted. He helped ensure that I knew how meetings worked and made sure that I knew I think people don't think about it often, the mechanics of how meetings are run. And I think that's really important when you come into a new space. You're not always sure how things work or how to navigate. And he ensured that I had the tools to do that, and was a good colleague to have next to me for the last 6 years. So thank you for all of your work and love that you have put into the city. And thank you for all of the Tic Tacs that you let me steal over the last several years. So I appreciate it and excited for whatever's next for you, and hope you do come and visit often.
All right, Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. I totally thought you were coming this way. That threw me off. Real quick, the 5th, I was at the tree lighting as well. Agreed, absolutely fabulous. For me, it was special as well. My grandson's first tree lighting, and so that was exciting. The 8th, I was at the special session. Earlier in that day, I joined some of you with Rep. Davis. I had hoped to join her today on the Bastard Dorms tour, but that was canceled. We imagine that will be rescheduled. On the 10th, had the employee breakfast. And that's always just an amazing time. So credit due or credit given where it's due, which is to the entire staff. Just a wonderful city to live and work in. The 10th, that same day, I did make it out to the EASC legislative kickoff and had hoped to get the trifecta and go to SCT later that night, but the weather punked me out, so I said I couldn't do it. And then on the 11th, the next day, I did have my city manager one-on-one. I always appreciate those. I will pause to say employee breakfast, city manager meeting, and just today, getting the opportunity to walk through and see the office decorations, all just make that budget amendment that we just passed easier for me. That said, lastly, today is Washington and Oregon Blood Donor Day, and I was invited down earlier by Bloodworks Northwest to share in that ceremony. And that will be the end of my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Page.
Thank you, Mayor. And first of all, I just want to, thank Councilmember Murray. I look forward every week for your reports on, what the DEI Commission is doing. They continue, and I think it's important to put on the record, they continue to show the city their relevance here in the city. And our city, year after year after year, is becoming, I think, better for their presence. So thank you, for those reports. I'll start on the first end of my bookend, and I'm looking forward to speaking to the other side of my bookend of events. But the 5th of this month, I had opportunity, the 4th, 5th, and 6th. Again, I've been talking about the getaway and the domestic violence, events that happened, and they finished up on the 6th, the 4th, 5th, and 6th. I think I talked about the 4th because that was our meeting. But then the 5th, they had more donations, they had more prizes going on over there. They had a lot more activity happening. But the 6th was like the coup de grace for them. They had a really good band. When I walked in on the 6th, community showed what they really were because the room was filled with gifts. They filled the wish list for the DVS that resulted in them having to remove everything and take it down to Everett in a truck. They that night, Saturday night, they raised close to $2,000 from donations from that night. A lot of people had a lot of good free spaghetti dinners for bringing in toys. So that was how we spent, the 6th. The 8th, with other members of the staff, met with Representative Lauren Davis, had some conversation about our goals and what we're hoping for. And we also had our executive session on the 8th. I met my monthly meeting with the city manager on the 9th. And then on the 10th was a whirlwind day. Started off with the employee breakfast. That was a first for me. And I will be the first to admit that I did not recognize our deputy city manager in the Santa Claus outfit. So I deserved a snowball thrown at me to this evening. Thank you very much. And then we also had the opportunity, to join council over at the EASC meeting. And then after that, I also had the opportunity to, actually, I think the city manager's meeting was on the 10th, not the 9th. And then I went to UW, where I had the opportunity to be with the Ray 8 Watershed Coordinator, the Salmon Recovery Summit, 25-year summit. And there was a series of speakers on panels, former members of the group and current members of the group, and had opportunity to really hear all the thoughts on what needs to be done and what has been done, the history of, what, the government has done in preserving, the salmon growth and activity here in the state, and what needs to be done going further. And finished off the 10th, in Mukilteo, with the Snohomish County tomorrow, where we had some fun table activity that was very serious and regarding, some of the hard work that those people have done and sitting at our tables, coming up with ideas, to move forward going into 2026 on things like housing and health. So I really appreciated doing that. And then the other end of the bookend, I had opportunity to go to my first MLT breakfast and Santa's workshop. And the reason why I talk about that being a bookend, because at the beginning of the month, the city showed, its colors on doing what they did for the DVS, and all the community coming together and putting that big effort forward. And then at the end of the month, I go over to the high school, and it's only been running for 29 minutes, and I couldn't find any parking. I had to go all the way in the back of the building, and that again, that showed, people talk about, well, where is our community going to be? I'm like, well, this is what our community is right now, where the community comes together and supports, what, members of the community is doing. The children singing in the choirs, it was beautiful to watch. The children were so excited, waiting in line to get up on stage to do their thing. How the community supported all the various students at their tables, where they had built things, manufactured things, and were selling things, to raise money, and the various bands that were playing. So it was just a wonderful way for me to see how in this short period of time on either end of the month that the community can come together. And I really look forward to so much more of that happening as we grow and develop. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the 5th, had the annual tree lighting ceremony. On the 8th, had the meeting with Representative Davis. We reviewed our legislative agenda. And later that day, had the mayor and I and staff met with the mosque leadership about some plans about how they can be more engaged in our community. Later that evening, on the 8th, had the executive session. On the 9th, had a meeting with Snohomish County tomorrow. Let's see, this one was the final run through for the general planning for the General Assembly presentation. So let's see, it was a exploratory committee leadership team, we'll call it. On the 10th, had the Mountlake Terrace Employee Appreciation Breakfast, followed by the Economic Alliance legislative preview, followed by the Snohomish County Tomorrow General Assembly. And then that, oh, no, not done yet. On the 11th, had our work session. On the 16th, the mayor and I and staff met with the Paul. We all heard from the Pauls during public comment in their property on Main Street that they're interested in developing. We had the opportunity to get together with them and explore ideas of how we might be able to see those properties develop along Main Street. I believe, and then of course, our reception for Councilmember Ryan, who's leaving us after many amazing years of service. Really appreciate all the work and time and effort and love for this community that you've put in, and we will miss you dearly on the council, but look forward to hearing all about your adventures as you sail off into the sunset of life and enjoying everything that it has to offer. Especially those travel stories, looking for those travel stories. Anyway, I think that is all for now. Do look for, I know, I would elaborate on everything, but it's the holidays, and I am so ready to begin the holidays. So want to wish everybody
Very happy holidays and look forward to seeing you all in the next year.
Thank you. Okay, so for my report, in December on the 5th, I attended the Seashore Transportation Forum, and they still do it on Zoom. And I'm just mentioning this now because I would like to see somebody step up to be on the Seashore Transportation next year. It is at 7:30 in the morning on the first Friday of each month. But because I've been there for almost all of the 18 years, almost 18 years, we got a few wins in our transportation throughout that time because we were at the table. So I hope that people will think about that one. That evening, I attended a tree lighting ceremony, and I just can't believe that every year we get more and more people attending that. And they look forward to it. I know that the other cities have their tree lighting, and everyone is different, but I think ours is special. And on the 8th, I attended the Zoom meeting with Representative Lauren Davis, and it's wonderful that we have a representative that is willing to spend time to listen to us, ask questions, and see what we need as a city. That afternoon, I also met with the people from the mosque, and getting to know the different people is really, really great. And so we met with the mosque, and then later I'll talk about the other people that we met with. That evening was the executive session. And then on the 10th, that was a long day because it started at 7 a.m. to go to the employees' breakfast. And it was at the Nile, and everyone has so much fun at that every single year. And so and the food was great, and we had to leave early because then we had to be at the Economic Alliance of Snohomish County, ESAC, legislative kickoff. And then later that evening, and that was in Everett, and later that evening, we went back up to Mukilteo for the Snohomish County Tomorrow General Assembly. And so that was a long day for all of us that did that, and for others too. And on the 16th, we met with the property owners on 56 to listen to their concerns about how they can do something with their properties. And they're very thankful that we are actually listening to them. And so that's what we want to do, is because we want to see things happening in our city. We want to see buildings coming up on Main Street. And the only way to do that is to listen and talk to the property owners who want to do something. That afternoon, I met with the county executive and the mayors. It was our last meeting of the year. And then, and most of that was on the flood and emergency management. But our executive wants to listen to what the mayors have to say. And so then after the staff, at the end of the meeting, the staff leaves, and then it's just the mayors and the executive. And then earlier today, I attended the tour of the Bastille dorms that Representative Davis wanted to look into because apparently there are dormitories sitting empty, and we need spaces for people to live, for the homeless getting off of the streets, or for domestic violence victims. We don't know what we're going to use it for, but we're in the beginning stages. And I've never been on the ground. I've been to St. Edward's Seminary, and this is right next door, and it is a beautiful campus. And so looking forward to see what we can do with those dormitories. And that is the end of my report. All right, so we're going to move on to new business. And if anyone has any new business, and then hopefully we can also say goodbye to our Councilmember Ryan at that time too. Councilmember Woodard?
Yeah, firstly, did you just say the Bastille tour did take place?
Yes.
Oh, well, canceled on mine, so my bad, Rep. Davis. I got a cancellation notice, so I didn't make it. That said, my new business actually was to address Councilmember Ryan which is just to say, it's a platitude to say thank you for your service, but genuinely thank you for your service. But I want to come at it a different way. In 2014, I had been back in Mountlake Terrace at that point about 2 years and just trying to get involved and actually trying to find work. And so from that, it gave me the opportunity to look into the city a little bit closer, and I was assigned to the library board. And you were my council liaison at the time. And I just want to say this as sincerely as possible. You were my first council member I ever spent time with. I don't mean on city council, I mean period. It was a foreign concept, even though I knew they existed. I was a political science person throughout college and all that, but actually spending time with folks and seeing what it looked like. So it was just interesting to hear your goodbye, because I would say what actually at least encouraged me about what was going on in the city was your warmth, which to me was the humor. It was the seriousness, which is to say you are a very consistent man. What I remember most in 2014 is how excited you would come, and really it was about 2014 to 2016, but no time did you waver. You would come and you would talk about the AWC classes you were in, but the certifications you were getting. And I just remember thinking to myself, I don't know what that is, but it's really exciting to see someone excited about learning and, you know, don't have to be. You're literally a teacher, right? So the running joke is we don't have to ever learn again because we're already teachers. But yet it was very clear that your investment in the city was there. But it really wasn't enough for me. Really what made me kind of endearing to you, I don't know, or vice versa, you endearing to me, I think is how that expression goes, is that you had your family involved. I mean, and right to the, you know, last day on this space, and I know they'll continue, but the fact that it was interwoven into everything about you, and I remember that, and had the wonderful experience of the last 6 years of seeing that expressed up close. But again, in the end of it all, just kind of recognizing this city doesn't really realize the gem probably that you are, and not just your immediate family, but your family name, but you leading that charge, just as an individual and your commitment to the community as well as to your profession as well as to students. So I look forward to seeing what you're going to do in this new time. I don't think it's going to be traveling. I think you probably have some ideas already, and this frees you up, because I know personally I feel a little constricted with the way that I engage the community, because I remember, it always reflects back on this city. And now you get to just do what you want to do and probably have some big plans. So I really look forward to seeing what that looks like, and I'm sure it's going to be family oriented. So thank you for your years of service, as sincerely as anybody can say that. But more importantly, thank you for the example you have always represented, at least in my eyes.
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Page.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Ryan, you know, what I need to say to you is a thank you. And that thank you is because, you know, I've been in the city a little bit over 5 years. And, you know, I've got quite a few highlights, but the three biggest highlights for me, one is, you know, the getting reelected. And when I got appointed, you know, you sat right here and you said, we got to keep you here. And the other highlight is the work that we, my wife and I do with the holiday shed. That's a big highlight for us, you know, but the highlight that I talk to people a lot about was when I got the phone call being asked if I would be the Tour de Terrace parade announcer. And I tell people I was stunned, I was shocked, and I said yes real quick, just in case they had made the wrong phone call and they was going to change their mind. And but the reason why it was such a big highlight was twofold. One, that was the best time I had with any event of anything I've done in this city. I felt like I belonged. But the other part of it is when I found out that you were the ones responsible for me being the Tour de Terrace announcer. You know, they had no idea how it came about until people told me, well, Rick Ryan was the one that put your name there and pushed for it to happen. And when I didn't know what to do or what I could do or what I couldn't do, you kept saying, whatever you want to do. You're the announcer. Just do it. Well, can I get in the crowd? Well, do whatever you want to do. Well, can I have some fun with it? Well, do whatever you want to do. And that's what we did, and that's what I did, Ellen and I. And so thank you. You know, that was right now, like I said, one of the biggest highlights since I've been living in the city that I've experienced. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right.
I can go again.
I've already given mine. So, okay. So if that is it, then I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming.